HR Department of the Year Awards, and we're excited to continue our presentations and webinars leading up to the big event in November. And we're very, very excited today to have Kate Badani, Chief Technology Officer with Kelly Benefits, who's going to be talking about practical strategies for HR using AI. And a couple things, the program is being recorded, so we'll be able to have it out on YouTube, and we're happy to share the slide deck with everyone as well. A couple logistical things. I guess you guys all know where your restrooms are, so I don't have to instruct you where to go. Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a little background information on the awards program and the application process, and then I'm going to turn it over to Gwen Bruce from Kelly, who's going to introduce Kate. So this program has been in existence for about 25 years or more, and continues to grow and get better each year. And we have our awards celebrations on Thursday, November 5th. It's at the Crystal Tea Room. I'm sure many of you have been to the event. It's kind of a must-see celebration. There's typically between 250 and 300 people there. Most are HR professionals and leaders, and we would be excited if you're willing to join us. So I'm going to say a little bit about the application process. We can go to the next slide. So first of all, the deadline for applying is October the 1st, which is about a month and a half away. So there's still plenty of time. And there is no cost to apply for the award. You can self-nominate. You don't have to have someone nominate you, although we do have a list of companies and HR leaders that we do reach out to that are brought to our attention as potentially application-worthy companies. Any consultant or vendor to HR can nominate their client. There's no limit to the number of categories that a company can apply for, and the applications are judged by a group of high-level CHROs and senior HR folks who will review the application. So there's a couple different categories. One is the HR department, which is you're applying for your whole HR department. And then you have what's called the Excellence Awards. So they're broken down by function, total rewards, employee relations, etc. Again, we have had companies apply for the HR department as well as one or two of the Excellence Awards categories. Like I said, there's no limit. If you are interested in talking about the program and your potential application, my contact information is below. My cell phone and email are there. One of the main reasons, or some of the main reasons that people apply, is that it shows your HR team that you consider them a valuable and a best practice function. So you're giving recognition to your HR team by applying, and also you're giving brand recognition to your company and your HR function. And that's whether you are a winner or a finalist. So that's some background. Encourage you to consider applying if you haven't or didn't know about it. Please reach out to me. We have 4 partners or 5 partners that run the program. We have Challenger Gray and Christmas, that's David Panett. We have Marsh McLennan Agency, that's John Ford. We had Littler, which is Malcolm, and we have Trilogy Talent Advisors, which is John Toohey, and myself from the Rosen Group. So our partners make this program happen. We also couldn't do this without our sponsors. Kelly Benefits Strategies is a major sponsor, and they're the premier sponsor for today and presenter for today. We also have platinum is Aramark in Villanova. We have a gold sponsor in First Trust Bank, and then we have silver sponsors, Double Star, HR Computes, Gallagher, and Meditation for Leadership. And our bronze sponsor is Neurodiversity Employment Network. Our next webinar is going to be on September 24th. And that is going to be presented by Aramark. Be the same format as this one, 8 to 9. You will be receiving notices about it, but you can also go to our website, which is hrawards.org, to register for the program and also to find out about more about the program and the application process. So with that, I'm going to now turn this over to Gwen. And Gwen Bruce from Kelly is going to introduce Kate. And just a couple things. Please, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. We will do our very best to try and get to every question. Kate is very willing and wants to entertain questions and make this an interactive program. So Gwen, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Scott. I'm Gwen Bruce. I'm an account manager at Kelly Benefits. We are currently celebrating our 50th anniversary, so it's really exciting that I get to say for 50 years, Kelly Benefits has partnered with employers and HR professionals to help them control costs, increase employee value, and save time through innovative employee benefits consulting, administration, and as we're here today, technology solutions. Representing that spirit of innovation today is Kate Vidani. She is our new Chief Technology Officer, and we're really excited to have her. She leads the organization's technology strategy and transformation efforts, and I can tell you, in just the few months that she has been here, almost a year now, Kate, she's seriously transformed the trajectory of our technology that we are using. It's really exciting to see. So please join me in welcoming Kate as she shares her perspectives on technology, innovation, and the evolving role of AI in the workplace.
Thanks, Gwen. As Gwen mentioned, as CTO of Kelly Benefits, I have the incredible honor of supporting our organization through an exciting era of transformation. If you look around today, you really can't open LinkedIn, turn on the news, walk into a meeting, or really have a conversation with a friend without someone mentioning artificial intelligence. We're told it's going to completely reinvent how we communicate, revolutionize how we analyze risks, and in our industry, how we run and manage employee benefits and manage our talent. If we're being completely honest, much of that conversation feels a bit bizarre and can feel sometimes like science fiction, marketing buzzwords, and candidly, mild panic. Today, we're going to strip away the jargon and the hype, and over the next 30 to 45 minutes, show you what, not just show you what AI is capable of in 2026, but understand the background and how it works at a fundamental level to empower you to more effectively use it in your daily lives. We're going to take a fast journey from the mechanical calculations and the world's first algorithm through the room-sized mainframe computer of the 1940s and then land squarely in modern machine learning. By the end of this session, we're hopeful that you will see how these technological stepping stones allow us to take terabytes of messy, complicated data and transform them into frictionless, reliable decisions that you can use in your everyday roles. To do that, we're going to start a little bit earlier than you might expect, long before electricity was ever used in computing, and go back to the 1800s. Quick question for the room, and I don't know if you all can use the chat, but I'll defer to Scott here, but does anybody have any idea when the world's first computer program was written? I can't see the chat, Scott, so I don't know.
I can't. I'll let you know, Kate.
Okay. Well,
Gwen says no.
Okay. Well, some of you might be guessing the 70s, 80s, maybe during the Silicon Valley boom. It's actually much earlier. We go back to 1843, which is pretty cool. There was a brilliant mathematician named Ada Lovelace, who, fun fact, was the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron. And she was working with a man named Charles Babbage on his design for a massive steam-powered mechanical calculating machine called the analytical engine. Ada translated this analytical engine, an Italian memoir But she didn't just translate it. She added her own set of notes that were 3 times as long as the original paper. In those notes, she developed what was actually a step-by-step method for calculating a complex sequence of numbers known as Bernoulli numbers. They were the world's first published machine algorithm. She proved that a physical machine could execute complex mathematical logic without human intervention. Pretty cool, right? Her true stroke of genius was actually that she realized if a machine could manipulate those numbers, and if things like musical notes, letters, and visual graphics could be translated and represented numerically, that the engine could actually compose music, produce art, and manipulate symbols. Think about that for a second. In 1843, when people were still riding horses and buggies, she predicted generative AI. She predicted that machines could actually create content. Pretty cool. Today, every single email you send, TikTok video you watch, and complex spreadsheet you build is really just a deeply complex pattern of those simple on and off switches that Ada was generating. Fast forward to the 1940s and the invention of the ENIAC. During World War II, the ENIAC took up an entire 1,800 square foot room, weighed more than 30 tons, and was powered by nearly 18,000 glowing, fragile vacuum tubes. Rumor has it when they turned it on, the streetlights of Philadelphia actually dimmed. Its main job was actually calculating artillery trajectories for the military in World War II. The problem was that computers didn't understand human language. If an engineer wanted a computer to process those military trajectories, they had to sit down and physically flip switches or punch holes in paper cards. These hoses were massive, and this was not an easy job. It was excruciatingly slow, exhausting, and full of human error. This raw machine code that they were translating is called binary. It is the language of computers, and it is essentially ones and zeros, and it's what you're seeing on the left. A 1 means an electrical switch is on, and a 0 means the switch is off. In the 1950s, Rear Admiral Grace Hopper was working on these machines, and she is today considered one of the true mavericks of computer science. Grace believed that humans shouldn't have to talk like silicone circuits, and that machines should learn to understand the human language and business words. She invented what was called the world's first compiler. A compiler is essentially just an automated software translator. It takes human readable English and translates it down to the binary instruction that the hardware understands. Let me lighten the mood with a fun fact about Grace Hopper. In 1947, while working on the computer called the Harvard Mark, her team couldn't figure out why her calculations were failing. As she was investigating this, they found an actual moth stuck in a relay causing the malfunction. It was then that she coined the famous term debugging. It was an actual bug that was in this machine. Pretty cool, right? Grace Hopper's compiler bridged the gap between human business logic and machine mathematics, laying the groundwork for every modern software application we use today, and eventually the groundwork for AI.
Kate, I have a comment from one of our attendees. Mark Spool is actually the lead judge for the HR awards. So he's a key part of our program. So thank you, Mark. Mark says, it used to be, I don't know if it's still there, that you could see the early vision of the mainframe computer at Unisys's lobby in Bluebell, Pennsylvania.
You can.
Aha.
Very 18, yes, very, very cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I often wonder if that joke is real about the lights actually dimming in Philadelphia. But something tells me that's got to be true or has some truth somewhere. To think about this another way, let's look at the devices we hold in our hands every single day. When you pick up your iPhone, your Android, your laptop, you see a high-resolution glass display of touch sensors and smooth operating systems with Wi-Fi. If you strip away that modern industrial design, what's actually sitting underneath? It's the same fundamental architecture as that giant room-sized ENIAC computer built during World War II. It's simply billions of microscopic switches. Another fun fact for you, when the 30-ton ENIAC was built in 1945, The male engineers designed the hardware. The ENIAC was actually entirely programmed by 6 brilliant female mathematicians. Through the 1940s, those photos were famously mislabeled those 6 females as refrigeration models. Today, only in the last couple of years, they have taken their rightful place in history, known as the ENIAC 6, and are considered the world's first computer engineers. Every high-definition video we stream, every spreadsheet formula we calculate, it's ultimately just a deeply orchestrated pattern of these ones and zeros. It's the exact same fundamental architecture as the ENIAC. The key difference is that the ENIAC and the UNIVAC were able to execute 2,000 calculations per second. The smartphones that we use today execute 15 trillion calculations per second. We haven't just made the switches faster, we began also teaching the switches how to learn. To transition into AI and understand a little bit more of what we call the zero friction revolution, we're going to go back a little bit, take a few minutes and talk about a couple of layers that made this possible. Think of technology as a 3-layered engine that took 50 years to build. Layer 1 is the microchip from the 1970s. This shrank those room-sized computing power into micro-thin slices of silicon, making computing personnel affordable and ubiquitous. The second layer was really the internet and big data throughout the 90s and the 2000s. This connected every computer on Earth. AI requires an immense amount of fuel, and the internet created an infinite ocean of digital data. Billions and billions of pages of text, images, healthcare records, and human interactions. This is the foundation for modern AI today. The third layer is cloud computing and GPUs in the 2010s and 2020s. AI needs massive computational engines to process that ocean of fuel. The cloud provided boundless storage, while graphics processing units, GPUs, provided massive parallel processing power. Fun fact, the modern AI boom is largely funded by teenage video gamers. Pretty fun to think about, right? Chip makers like NVIDIA spent billions of dollars making the perfect GPU solely so gamers could see hyper-realistic 3D lighting and ray-traced water reflections in video games. It turned out that the complex matrix mathematics required to render 4K video game graphics is the same mathematical engine needed to train deep neural networks. So we all have the gamers to thank for what we're experiencing today. It's not an accidental fad. AI is the inevitable result of shrinking hardware, infinite storage, and an ocean of digital data, colliding at the exact right moment in history. This brings us to the central theme of today's discussion, which is the zero friction revolution. If we look at how long it took technology to reach 100 million users, it can tell us a lot. Why did the telephone take 75 years? It had enormous physical friction. You had to fell millions of trees for telephone poles, string copper wires over mountains, and wire every single physical home. Raise your hand if you remember when dial-up internet meant your family couldn't use a landline for 4 hours. No? Yeah. The internet took 7 years because we still had to lay transoceanic fiber cables and install physical modems. AI is fundamentally different. AI was born into a world where fiber was already laid, the cloud was already operational, smartphones were already in our pockets. It arrived as the zero friction software layer, deployed directly onto our existing devices. It required absolutely no new hardware. It only needed a login. ChatGPT hit 100 million users in under 60 days. And by early 2026, it surpassed 900 million weekly active users. We're not just living in a new era of tech. We are living in a brand new velocity of tech. 100 million users for the telephone took 75 years. It took less than 60 days for ChatGPT. Pretty crazy, huh? To navigate this landscape without getting overwhelmed, I'm going to give you a couple basics. We're going to decode what we call the AI alphabet soup. People use terms like AI, ML, and deep learning interchangeably, but they're actually nested inside of each other like Russian nesting dolls. The largest of these nesting dolls is called AI, artificial intelligence. This is the broad outer umbrella. This is any technique that allows a machine to mimic human logic, from a simple rule-based payroll calculator to a self-driving car. ML is the next of these layers, the middle layer. In traditional programming, humans write rigid code. If an employee works over 40 hours, pay them 1.5. In machine learning, we don't write explicit rules. We feed the system millions of data points and let the statistical algorithms discover the patterns on their own. At the inner core is what we call deep learning. Inspired loosely by neural networks in the human brain, deep learning stacks layers of mathematical equations to process messy, unstructured data like medical claims, invoices, voice recordings, call summaries, and handwritten documents without needing human manual tagging. For the past 15 years, most corporate software was powered by traditional machine learning. Traditional ML is an analyzer and a predictor. You give it 5 years of healthcare claims data, and it categorizes those numbers to predict. Based on the past claims, your group of medical spend will increase X% on the next renewal. It looks at what already exists, classifies it, and then makes a prediction. The seismic breakthrough of generative AI is that it moves from classification to creation. Gen AI analyzes massive data sets to generate new context-aware content. It doesn't just tell you that your claims went up, it can draft a tailored open enrollment communication plan, generate a side-by-side comparison in plain English, and write a custom spreadsheet formula in mere seconds. To use LLMs safely in business, we must understand what they're actually doing underneath the hood. What happens when you type a prompt into ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude? The model is not searching a statistic folder or querying a database for a pre-written answer. At its core, LLMs, or large language models, are the world's most sophisticated probabilistic autocomplete engines. Having ingested hundreds of billions of words from across the public internet, the model calculates mathematical probabilities token by token. It knows that after the phrase, "I am going to the," there is an 85% statistical likelihood that the next word is a store, a 10% chance that the next word is park, and a 5% chance that the next word is moon. Who here has ever blindly tapped the middle autocomplete button on your phone keyboard to finish a text message? I've done it. I'm sure y'all have done it. If you take a second and start by typing, "I am on my way," 4 taps later, you'll have accidentally texted your boss, "I'm on my way to destroy the universe with cheese." That's essentially what an ungrounded LLM is doing. It just so happens to have 175 billion parameters of vocabulary at its fingertips. This brings us to the biggest risk in business as we talk about AI, which is the hallucination problem. Large language models are designed above all else to be conversational, helpful, and fluent. They are natural, quote-unquote, people pleasers. If an employee asks an ungrounded public AI model, think ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, whatever your company uses, under our company's specific Anthem PPO plan, does an MRI require prior authorization? The public model does not have access to those companies' private data plans. Instead of saying, "I don't know," the predictive engine strings together medical terms that sound professional and authoritative, yet are completely made up. In 2023, a practicing attorney in New York used ChatGPT to write a legal brief for a federal court case. ChatGPT hallucinated 6 entirely fictional court precedents. Think about that for a minute. Just completely made them up. Fake judicial quotes, fake docket numbers, and fake judges' names. When the federal judge asked for copies of the rulings, the attorney asked ChatGPT, "Are these cases real?" And ChatGPT cheerfully replied, "Yes, they are in legal databases." The attorney was sanctioned and fined. In our world, where we rely heavily on data to make decisions and empower us as a part of our everyday activities and employee benefits and HR compliance, acting on fabricated answers is a financial and legal liability. Guessing is completely unacceptable. How do we address this? To make AI safe and reliable for business operations, we have to move beyond language prediction into the green center of our next nested Russian doll, which is called causal AI. Generative AI excels at communicating in fluent natural language. Causal AI actually provides mathematical and logical reasoning. Causal AI does not simply guess which word comes next, it maps out explicit cause and effect relationships. If an HR team is evaluating a self-funded health plan or deciding whether to modify a stop-loss deductible from $100,000 to $150,000, for example, we can't rely on an engine that produces what quote-unquote sounds good. We need a causal engine that can calculate the exact downstream financial and clinical ripple effects. This is what causal AI can do for us. Let's look at a real-world example of why correlation can get us into trouble. If we feed historical data into a basic predictive algorithm, it will discover a near perfect statistical correlation. Whenever ice cream sales increase, sunburn rates and swimming pool drownings skyrocket. A purely correlative system might conclude if we want to stop sunburns, we must ban ice cream. Makes sense, right? Humans intuitively understand that a lurking variable, which is actually the hot summer weather, causes both things. In HR and employee benefits, mistaking correlation for causation can be incredibly dangerous. If an employer notices that high pharmacy spend correlates with a high retention among certain specialists, a naive model might recommend that expanding specialty drug access arbitrarily to boost retention. Causal AI isolates the true root drivers, ensuring your clinical, physical, and HR policies are grounded in actual cause and effect data. If a company notices that high prescription utilization correlates with a higher employee retention in certain departments, we can actually translate those decisions that are built on verifiable cause and effect relationships. How do we completely eliminate hallucinations when we harness the power of AI? And how do we make this safe for every single one of us to use in our jobs and for you to use on a daily basis? The answer is what we call source grounding. Instead of allowing an AI engine to pull information freely from the chaotic open web, grounding places strict filters around the models. We restrict its reference library exclusively to private, verified, and audited source data, such as your company's actual contracts, benefits plans, etc. When an inquiry comes in, the model is strictly forbidden from guessing. The answer is not explicitly proven within the verified source documents. And the system then, if the answer is not explicitly proven, the system refuses to speculate and will tell you that it simply doesn't know. This transforms AI from an unpredictable open web novelty into an enterprise-grade, hyper-reliable business assistant. Sounds pretty great, right? Over the past several years, federal legislation has completely changed the healthcare landscape through the TIC rule. The TIC rule is called transparency and coverage. While this may or may not be applicable to everyone in the audience, I thought it might be interesting to take a little bit of a journey down what Kelly Benefits is doing to expand our data sets. For the first time in history, healthcare insurance carriers and hospitals have been legally forced to stop hiding math and publish their negotiated rates. Carriers didn't realize that this data, although they didn't release this data in neat Excel spreadsheets that we could search, they released it as what they call MRFs, which are machine-readable files, massive digital files filled with millions and millions and trillions of files of raw code. Fun fact, just to give you a sense of scale, a single carrier's monthly pricing export can exceed 100 terabytes of compressed code. For those in the audience that don't know what this means, it's massive. If we converted that raw file into a standard single-spaced copy paper, the stack wouldn't just fill your office. It would reach past low Earth orbit. If you try to open one of those files on a normal computer, Excel will freeze and crash instantly, regardless of the computing power that you give it. While most competitors are drowning in this data, we are taking this data and engineering our modern lakehouse. We are taking those synthesized terabytes of MRF data, and we would encourage you guys to work with your companies to do the same. This brings us directly to the strategic reality for every leader in this room. The train has left the station. We're either embracing AI for operational advantages, or we're deferring to competitors for will. How many people in this room got into HR because you had a deep childhood dream of spending 6 hours every Friday manually rekeying employee dependent social security numbers into carrier web portals? I'm guessing not many. No one, probably. You got into HR to develop talent, build culture, grow organizations. The real question is, how do we leverage AI across these three pillars to do just that? The first one, better HR operations. We want to automate census and processing, compliance reporting, and carrier reconciliations. We want better employee experiences. We want to give our employees instant, frictionless access to verified benefits answers anytime, anywhere. And we want better jobs. We want to eliminate administrative bottlenecks so that you and your teams can focus on high-impact strategic initiatives. Let's look at how these technologies work and pivot away from the theory to talk about some practical strategies. These practical strategies can be implemented for you and your teams right now. The first major operational domain where AI delivers immediate ROI is in talent acquisition and everyday HR operations. This is the natural sweet spot for generative AI and natural language processing, because these workflows are built around reading, writing, and synthesizing language. Candidate screening and competency matching. Instead of an HR recruiter spending 20 hours manually scanning through hundreds of PDF resumes, NLP, natural language models, can parse candidate competencies, evaluate transferable skills against job requirements, and rank applicants objectively to dramatically compress time to hire. Another example is in recruiting, automation, and sourcing. Conversational AI assistants can engage candidates on your career site 24/7, answering role-specific questions about benefits, company culture, and remote work policies, while coordinating multi-stage interview calendars automatically. Dynamic role scoping. Generative models can draft hyper-tailored job descriptions aligned with internal competency models in seconds, complete with structured behavioral interview rubrics tailored to that specific role. 24/7 HR help desk and frictionless onboarding. Frontline HR teams report that they spend up to 40% of their work week answering the exact same 12 questions about paid time off, health plan copays, and holiday schedules. A conversational assistant resolves these repetitive inquiries instantly, while automated agentic workflows can provision IT equipment, assign compliance training, and guide new hires step by step through their first 90 days. This means that no one on your team ever has to answer an email thread, "When do we get paid this week?" at 7 a.m. on a Friday ever again. The second major operational frontier moves beyond language generation into predictive analytics, retention, and employee development. This is where we move from generative AI to predictive machine learning and the causal reasoning we've talked about today. Attrition risk forecasting. Predictive models can analyze historic tenure patterns, time and role, compensation benchmark gaps, and engagement metrics to flag flight risk before top performers submit their 2-week notice. We can look at sentiment and culture heat maps. Instead of waiting for an annual 50-question survey that no one wants to fill out, natural language processing can continuously aggregate anonymous employee pulse checks, exit interviews, and support feedback to detect burnout hotspots across specific departments in real time and alert you before they happen. Adaptive learning and internal talent marketplaces are another area to explore. AI platforms can evaluate an employee's current skills, match them to open internal cross-functional projects or mentorship opportunities, and build personalized coursework paths to prepare them for their next promotion. Objective bias performance reviews. We all suffer from recency bias. Managers tend to write annual reviews based entirely on whatever happened in the last 3 months. AI models can aggregate continuous goal metrics, peer feedback, and project milestones across an entire 12-month cycle to give managers a balanced, factual baseline. Remember our lesson about ice cream sales and sunburns? This is why causal AI is vital for people analytics. If employee departures spike in your engineering department, a basic correlative model might assume engineers quit because of compensation. A causal engine isolates the true underlying driver, showing you that departures are actually caused by unsustainable overtime following a specific product launch. That distinction saves you from wasting budget on unnecessarily salary bumps while ignoring the real operational bottleneck. To wrap up our session, let's bring everything we've covered today back to reality and give you a concrete playbook for when you sit down at your desk tomorrow morning. When evaluating how to deploy AI across your HR organization or how to use it as a part of your everyday job, you have to divide your workflows into two distinct operational lanes. The first lane, creative and drafting lane. This is generative AI and LLMs. The second lane is the mission critical lane. That's where source grounded and causal AI are paramount. If your organization is exploring or already using off-the-shelf LLMs like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, or Gemini, and you do not have a closed source-grounded data platform sitting behind it, the golden rule is to treat AI like a brilliant, super fast summer intern. We've all had interns that have been great. These are interns on steroids. An intern is fantastic at writing drafts of employee announcements, outlining open enrollment themes, brainstorming interview questions, and summarizing lengthy 40-page policy briefs. But you would never let an intern unsupervised calculate a self-funded healthcare risk, interpret complex FMLA compliance rules, or file an IRS Form 5500 without double-checking every single line of that data. That is where the mission critical lane comes into play. This is the causal and source grounded lane. This is where guessing is unacceptable due to the legal and financial liability. When modeling stop loss deductibles, analyzing terabytes of MRFs, and validating ERISA compliance, you need to determine true root cause drivers of an employee attrition. You need audited, source grounded truth. Building systems that are strictly source grounded in your private in your workplaces can enable you to avoid some of the common pitfalls of hallucination in generative AI. Rule number 1, a couple of rules to take away with you today. Rule number 1, always double check ungrounded data. Remember that public LLMs, like we talked about, are probabilistic autocomplete engines designed to be helpful, but not necessarily factual. If a public tool doesn't have access to your exact planned documents, its predictive engine will simply guess. Always verify that data against regulatory citations, claims logic, benefits numbers, etc. before publishing. Rule number 2, always protect sensitive PII and PHI. Never put confidential employee salaries, medical claims data, social security numbers, census sheets into public consumer-grade AI models. If you use Copilot, you'll want to use something like Copilot Pro that is approved for PII and PHI. There are different variations of this. Gemini has what they call Gemini in the enterprise version. Rule number 3, match the tool to the problem. Use generative AI where language and creativity matter, and demand causal, source-grounded models where deterministic math and cause and effect decisions are required. From Ada Lovelace predicting generative computing on brass gears in 1843 to Grace Hopper removing the first moth from a relay in 1947, computing has always been about one thing: building better tools so that humans can focus on higher-level human work. If you take nothing else away from today, take away this. AI is not here to replace the human element of anything that we do, and especially not HR. It's here to take away the manual data entry, the repetitive ticket queues, and the administrative paperwork factory so you can focus on building people, culture, and strategy. It's here to remove the administrative grind, freeing you to lead people, shape the culture, and grow your organizations. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you guys going on the journey with me and taking a little journey down history lane. I hope this gave you a clear lens on what some of these technologies are, demystified some of these buzzwords, and gave you some actionable confidence to lead your teams forward. Happy to take any questions or comments or feedback that y'all have.
Thank you, Kate. That was very detailed but very informative. We do have one question from Mark, again, Mark Spool. And then Yeah, if people can just maybe share where they are on their, evolution of AI, using AI and where you're using it, and then any questions that you might have around how to get started or where to get started, that would be great. So we have some time for some Q&A. Mark's question is, can causal AI help measure the impact of HR's initiatives on employees and the organization to demonstrate HR is value added, i.e., it makes a difference and makes an impact?
It's a really interesting conversation, Mark. There is an article. One of the famous tech moguls right now actually got rid of his entire HR department. I don't know if you've read it, but it was in Fortune, made some national news, got rid of his HR department, saying that HR really just created bottlenecks and slowed things down, only to 6 months later create what he called a people enhancement or people engagement function. Causal AI can absolutely tie cause and effect relationships together. So you could absolutely make the argument that this technology could help you draw correlation and cause and effect relationships across specific initiatives that you're running to justify needing additional personnel in your departments or to justify whether or not an initiative that you ran across the company was a success. So, assuming that it's built with the right tools in place, I think that's a great use case.
Thank you. Other questions that have to do with Kate's presentation today? We're waiting here. We'll give it a minute. Oh, this is from Gwen. What is your favorite AI tool?
Oh, oh, that's a fun one.
Huh.
I because my OCD kicks in most days, I actually tend to run things across a couple of them. So, on a daily basis, I will use everything from Gemini, GPT, Copilot, etc., just to kind of play around with the algorithms themselves and the LLMs. It probably my favorite one is a couple of agents that we build that help us with some of the product engineering that we do right now. I mean, it actually helps us synthesize requirements from the business and actually helps us understand what the business is looking for and what we can build to actually make their lives better. So, it's probably a couple of things that we have homegrown built, but you know, Gemini is a fun one. Gemini has some really cool image creation capabilities if y'all haven't played with that yet.
Great. We have a question from Ben Ryan, also at Kelly. What are one or two ways you have implemented AI that has had the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think, I think impact is interesting, right? Because there's some really cool things that we think we can do with it. Prior to coming to Kelly, I was very fortunate to have spent, 15 years in the consulting world. And so we were, doing things like building fraud detection algorithms for banks, right? And actually submitting things to the SEC where we were seeing patterns that algorithms could detect faster than even a human could detect. So I think impacts there's impacts and then there's kind of I think the other side of that, which is really understanding the costs of some of those tools and how that goes into it. So there's some just really easy fun things that you can do, like intelligent document processing to help you scan PDFs, to help you get unstructured data, what we call unstructured data, which is in a PDF or a Word document, right, into kind of a database. And I think those are actually some of the most impactful uses of AI that we see today. Just the ability to summarize incredibly complex, lengthy data sets, 400-page documents, and give us a summary of what we need to take away, what's most important to our clients. We can actually, I think another impactful thing that we've done recently is using it in the consulting world to analyze communications from our clients and understand how they want to be communicated with and what data is important to them. So I think largely, I would say the answer depends on kind of how you judge or justify impact, but everything from fraud detection is obviously very cool and impactful, but summarizing 300-page briefs can be just as impactful.
Great. So we have a couple questions. Morris Yankel from HR Computes, also a sponsor of the HR Awards, says, do you have the paid version of any AI tool you use?
I have the paid version of almost all of them, unfortunately.
Okay.
Gemini, we at Kelly Benefits use Copilot. So Copilot Pro is the paid version of that. That's specifically just to be able to protect PII and PHI. So it runs on kind of like a private model. Think of it as like a private model versus a public model. So anytime y'all are dealing with any type of sensitive information, you're probably gonna go with a paid version.
Gotcha. Um, Larry Siegel, who is one of the producers of our webinar. Thank you, Larry, for all your help. Larry asks, looking into a crystal ball, where do you see AI in use in HR 5 years from now?
Oh gosh. Oh,
Huh.
that's a fun one, Larry. I think it probably goes back to one of the questions we had earlier, just around being able to justify some of the programs that we build, being able to look at things like employee retention. I think we're really just scratching the surface there, in my opinion, understanding what's important to employees, understanding how to optimize our benefits programs, right? How do we, put data at the fingertips of our employees to make our benefits package something truly that is a differentiator for us. So obviously that's kind of a biased answer. I left the consulting world from building tons and tons of awesome just new products from healthcare and pharmaceuticals, but I love what I'm doing right now. And I think there's just a real opportunity to hone in on benefits administration and trying to just make that better, right? Make everything that we do better for our employees. And I think that's what excites me right now. So definitely a biased answer, Larry. Forgive me, but I
Thank,
think there's just so much opportunity there.
thank you, Kate. Mars has another question. How does your company budget for token-based AI costs?
Oh, that's a fun one. So we do a lot of private. So we actually still have an on-premise infrastructure where we're doing some of our computing privately to actually help control those costs. So it is something that can get out of hand very, very quickly. I don't know that we've really talked about it, but there are many times you'll have conversations where, hey, an AI agent could do this, right? And you're going, yeah, it could, but it's going to cost me 3 times as much than, that FTE that I have that does this today. So those are definitely things to take into consideration. Private infrastructure, private hardware to do some of that testing is definitely a help. And then we just have alerts set up across the board, right? So we do a lot of testing to determine whether a higher end model is really required or makes a difference when we're choosing our LLMs in some of that correlative analysis that we do. So we do a lot of initial test harnesses and we do most of that locally.
Great. I have a follow-up question on that, Kate. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard from some AI experts that all of the apps now or tools are talking to each other, and that, that at some point, just using basic economics, just like, Google rose to the top or Microsoft or some company became, the business tool to use. Do you see that potentially happening here just in terms of, because there's more and more and more tools, and it probably would be more efficient and cost effective to have one or two, big guys in the industry. Do you foresee that happening or not necessarily?
I think we're starting to see pieces of it, right? I mean, if you look at Google came out with the original kind of quote unquote source grounded tools in like Notebook LM, if you'll have heard of that. And then you saw Claude, Anthropic come out with what they call co-work. You're seeing Microsoft come out with co-work now too. So I think we're probably going to see a couple of key players rise to the top in the same way that we saw Amazon, Microsoft, and Google rise to the top in the cloud computing realm. A lot of this is going to depend on the compute power and the resources that are available. So I think for that reason, again, probably pretty biased here. I would say you're going to continue to see the Amazons and the Googles rise. Anthropic has made great strides though, and Cloud Cowork does exactly that. It connects every single tool that you have across your phone, your laptop, and Microsoft is trying to mimic and replicate that right now. So if
Wow.
you haven't used that, plug for that. But it's an incredible race, right? We're just innovating at a pace that is just so crazy cool and exciting.
Yep. We'll take a couple more questions. Gwen has a question. If an HR department does not have a paid version of an AI tool, what tool would you recommend they start with?
think your common one is obviously ChatGPT. I'm more of a fan of the Gemini family of models. I think they're a little bit more sophisticated. Claude is obviously, not obviously, but I would say Claude is probably your best bet. That is the Anthropic family of models. So if you haven't experimented with anything, I would say start there. But if you are in your company, obviously reach out to your leaders, and they likely have something approved for you, right? Whether that be Copilot just as a part of your Microsoft licensing. But if I'm going to pick, I'm probably going Claude or Gemini.
Gotcha. All right, so why don't we wrap up here? Kate, we want to thank you so much for your presentation today. Very informative. Again, we will be sending the slide deck out to all the attendees today. And we really happy that you presented this information. I know for me it was a great, just kind of a great history and overview for HR leaders to consider in terms of how they're going to use AI going forward. So I want to thank you very much. We also want to thank Gwen for helping to put this together and for Kelly Benefits as a major sponsor of the HR Department of the Year Awards and also a fantastic benefit organization that if you ever want to ask any questions, Gwen would be a great resource and I could refer you to her. And want to thank our sponsors, all of our sponsors, and we're excited to get to work and start employing all these suggestions and ideas. So you got a lot of kudos. Fabulous presentation, wonderful, fantastic, informative. So a lot of positive feedback. So we thank you again, Kate and Gwen. Also want to thank Linda Casano, Larry Siegel for sort of being the backbone of these webinars and putting these together. And Seamless Events, which is also a partner and does all the sort of back office work for the HR Awards program. So I hope everybody has a great day and thank you for participating.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Thanks, Kate.